Welcome back. I'm Jodi Shelton, the co-founder and CEO of GSA.
And I'm Simon Segars, CEO of ARM and the chair of the GSA.
Well, Simon, here we are, a party of two. Not as much fun as celebrating with 1,500 of our closest friends, but it's still good to see you and to be next to a human being. And we have the NVIDIA headquarters practically to ourselves. Did you ever imagine that in March of 2020, or even at the end of last year, that we would be here again holding this ceremony virtually for the second year?
No, actually, I did not. But we wouldn't be in this industry unless we were eternal optimists. Speaking of which, I'm very optimistic about our amazing program today.
We have so much to celebrate this year. Our industry has defied all odds and come out of this pandemic stronger than ever. There's an ancient Chinese proverb that says, when the winds of change blow, some people build walls and others build windmills. Winds of change is an understatement for what we've been through for the last year and a half. But we are that industry building those windmills. We never looked for shelter. We followed our instinct and created. Our industry is defined by change, and it's in our DNA, and we thrive in its wake.
I don't think there has ever been a better time to be in the semiconductor industry. Growth is both robust and sustainable. The pace of innovation is accelerating, and our members are flourishing.
The leaders just keep getting stronger, whether it's Qualcomm, now under the tutelage of Cristiano Amon, whose strategy to move beyond mobile has been rewarded with an all-time high stock price, or NVIDIA, now the 7th most valuable company in the S&P.
Or AMD, set to grow its revenue by a remarkable 65% this year and maintain its darling of Wall Street status. And NXP, expecting to achieve $15 billion in sales by 2024, with much of the expansion coming from internet-connected electric vehicles.
Undeniably, our industry's leading companies are doing very, very well.
But it's not just those companies that are doing well. The opportunities are broad for all of the industry. Look at Renesas, a global player in automotive semiconductors amid an explosion in the growth of chip-heavy vehicles. Marvell is now a 5G sensation, and Silicon Labs an IoT powerhouse. Many companies gained access to public markets, with 10 companies going public in 2021, including a few SPAC deals like Navitas, AI, and Valens. Companies such as Skywater, Visera, Alphawave IP, and UPI Semiconductor completed conventional IPOs, and startup funding is booming, with a record $6 billion raised in the last year alone.
And it's been a good year for GSA, despite the challenge of no in-person programs. Last year, the key word was pivot, and this year it's about resilience. When you came on as chair last year, we set up 3 priorities. First was broadening the GSA membership to include even more of the companies within the ecosystem. Second was to grow up our startup community. And last was to establish and grow GSA's interest groups and councils.
So how are we doing?
Well, we've made some serious progress in growing our membership with a lot of the ecosystem partners and customers. GSA members now represent over 75% of this $500+ billion market. And now we count companies like Facebook, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, Flex, and many others as part of this community. These new members and their various perspectives increase our value to all GSA members, providing the platform and environment for collaboration, development, and debate with all viewpoints represented. GSA continued to provide virtual events and webinars where countless leaders shared their wisdom and interfaced with hundreds of companies and thousands of individuals. And we hosted our first Women in Semiconductor Hardware Conference, or WISH, which proved to be an amazing platform for over 1,000 participants, showcasing women and their innovations and contributions. We provided our startup members the programs and forums they need to ensure their collaborative success. Sentient, a deep learning tech company, and AI chipmaker Halo recently joined GSA's AI interest group. Also, Semi5 and Al Autonomous Imaging participated in our startup showcase at the GSA's Entrepreneur Conference. And today we highlight Ayer Labs and Menlo Microsystems, both nominated for our Startup to Watch award, as well as Samba Nova and Sci5, which are up for the Most Respected Private Company award. GSA interest groups and councils are growing and thriving. Our trusted IoT ecosystem security group and the automotive interest group continue to attract new members. We were very excited recently when Ford joined the automotive group. This year, we established the artificial intelligence and intellectual property interest groups. Each of these include more than 30 companies from across the globe and from different levels of the ecosystem. These members collaboratively discuss challenges posed by fragmented but emerging markets to realize growth opportunities for the industry. finally, due to the critical impact of several global fiscal and market trends on the semiconductor ecosystem, we reestablished the CFO and CTO councils.
That's fantastic. I strongly believe that the GSA is more relevant than ever, which I think these achievements demonstrate.
Today, we celebrate our industry, which is expected to achieve monumental record revenue of $550 billion in 2021 and over $600 billion in 2022. And this during a supply crisis that has tempered the growth that we could have actually attained. People often ask me, what went wrong to create this crisis? As we know, it was actually a lot of good things that happened to contribute to the imbalance. During the last year and a half, we witnessed an unprecedented acceleration of digitization driven by simultaneous adoption of a range of technologies, including AI, IoT, 5G, cloud computing. On top of this was a surprising V-shaped economic recovery that led to semiconductor revenue growth of 10% last year and expectations for another 25% this year.
The supply chain crisis is a challenge we will continue to deal with. And as I mentioned last month at the Web Summit conference in Lisbon, we still have a long way to go before we reach equilibrium. This shortage impacts nearly 170 industries, including autos, computers, medical equipment, and just about every other electronic device. Our entire ecosystem is forced to manage these complex conditions. The good news is our top 3 foundry partners announced plans to invest $300 billion in new manufacturing capacity over the course of the next several years. And Global Foundries recently tapped into the public markets, raising $2.6 billion and completing the largest semiconductor IPO in history, as they plan to expand manufacturing capacity, including spending $1.4 billion this year and doubling that in 2022. Today, there are between 30 and 40 new fabs at some point of construction, which could theoretically support another $600 billion in industry revenue.
A potential famine to feast situation.
Yes, we will see. This is a situation we're going to have to manage very, very carefully. I'm reminded of the old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. We are indeed living in interesting times, but I don't see this as a curse, do you?
What most people would consider a curse, we see as an everyday challenge. For years, the semiconductor industry quietly underpinned the growth of a range of technologies that made life easier and more productive, improving the lives of people around the globe. Not so quietly, semiconductor leaders lamented how few appreciated their foundational technology, the staggering R&D costs, and the increasing complexity of chips, systems, and supporting software. But now the world is paying attention.
In spite of the current supply chain issues, there has never been a better time to be in the semiconductor business. First of all, the growth prospects for our industry are profound, and the optimism about the future is strong because of the sustainability of various growth vectors. E-Tron's CEO and our board member, Dr. Nicky Liu, recently gave a speech at our Asia-Pacific Executive Forum predicting $1 trillion in industry revenue by 2035.
Wow. There's never been a better time to be in the semiconductor industry also because with the value we create and the widespread recognition of our crucial role. On Wall Street and in boardrooms and capitals across the world, people now recognize that we are driving the $95 trillion global economy. Gina Raimondo, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, recently stated that when semiconductor stops, the economy stops. The semiconductor industry has long been defined by Moore's Law, which manifests as our industry being the most deflationary industry in the world. But for the first time in 25 years, we're talking about the value of semiconductors rather than price. And there's never been a better time to be in the semiconductor industry because of the pace of technological innovation that drives semiconductor technology and enables our end customers to create revolutionary products. There's far too many applications to mention in detail, but I want to highlight that vaccine developers' use of AI to create the COVID-19 vaccine, which compressed the normal 7-year timeline into a single year of intense development without compromising safety along the way. Moore's Law drives much of this innovation, but today there's also more than Moore, and now we have SysMoore, a term coined by Art DeGius that describes the combined transistor scaling of Moore's Law with the systematic complexity of hyperconvergent integration. Heterogeneous integration is an example. Assembly and package design now sits at the center of the universe for the next generation of semiconductor design.
And you can imagine that we are now talking about 1 trillion transistors on a single chip thanks to the Cerebras team. That's really pushing the envelope. or predicting climate change with NVIDIA's Earth 2 product, a complete digital twin of the Earth. Digitization, datafication, and virtualization will change many aspects of our lives. The virtualization of our offices and workplaces was a crisis-driven surge of a much longer-term trend in which we will become increasingly familiar with the concept of a metaverse, persistent digital worlds that exist in parallel with the physical world in which we live. Inside these metaverses, we will work, play, and socialize as we do in the real world. These metaverses will model and simulate the real world with growing accuracy, allowing us to have more immersive, convincing, and ultimately valuable experiences within the digital realm. I do want to add that alongside the technological velocity, we need to keep a human-centric focus and make sure that the technology we are creating is solving those monumental problems facing humanity. I think one thing we have learned through this pandemic is that the interaction between us all is one of the things that makes us human.
Thank you for that reminder, Simon. And you know, despite all the great things we've outlined, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Of course, top of mind is the supply crisis. And related to that concern is the attempts to remedy this may cause an oversupply and a duplication of capital investments. At GSA, we appreciate the recognition we are receiving. At the same time, we're concerned that policymakers' exuberant desire to replicate regional ecosystems, combined with the ongoing trade tensions, poses risks for market distortion and geographical decoupling. It's not just China or the U.S. that want to make, quote, a technological self-sufficiency a strategic pillar of national development, as President Xi Jinping stated, but also Europe and Korea, and I even recently heard about Russia making some big investments. Although we're not opposed to governments incentivizing ecosystem development or business and government partnerships, we caution that such development cannot come at the sacrifice of global collaboration and market efficiency, which has historically resulted in global value creation.
Another risk that we face is the talent pipeline for our industry. CEOs everywhere are questioning whether we can sustain the kind of growth we're predicting with a dwindling number of students pursuing engineering degrees. This has always been a concern, but with rising nationalism, we fear fragmentation of the global talent market. As an industry, we should take an active role in rectifying this problem.
And as you know, Simon, to expand the talent pool, the GSA's first course of action was to establish our Women's Leadership Initiative, which enjoys the strong endorsement of CEOs in our industry. For all the reasons we've outlined today, now is the right time to attract young people to the industry. One of the 3 goals for the Women's Leadership Initiative is to attract university STEM-focused women to our industry. We have an active university program that helps educate women on the opportunities we've discussed today.
As you know, Jodi, I'm a big proponent of WLI. And when you look at the women nominated for the Rising Women of Influence Award, it's very impressive. Congratulations to each of those innovators. It should be our goal to make this industry more attractive and inclusive to those from all walks of life to ensure that the best brainpower can be put to work to help us evolve and serve a global community.
Our industry embraces change and uses it to propel us like using gravity of a passing meteor to slingshot our ship's course to a new galaxy. Our relenting drive to solve problems and overcome technical roadblocks makes me proud to be the self-appointed ambassador of this industry. We do not always know what the future is going to bring, but we do know it will be us creating it. We create things that have never been created. We design solutions to the daunting challenges facing our modern world, and I think we can agree there has never been a better time to be in the semiconductor industry. George Bernard Shaw said, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." So keep creating, keep defying the laws of physics, keep being unreasonable. The world depends upon it.